There's this article that recently went viral titled, "1 in 4 young adults believe AI partners could replace real life relationships." And I want to talk about the challenges and the problems with that thing. What happens if we start relationships with AI? Is it a good thing for society, for our happiness, or not? And you'll see that most of it is not. I'll talk about specifically in terms of relationships. I'll zoom out a little bit about over reliance on AI. What happens if we start using artificial intelligence to do all our stuff? And then I'll go into, okay, what can I do about this personally? And what should we do about this as designers, as we are making these technologies? Because I think that is where, honestly, a lot of the responsibility lies. So let's get into this. Relationships with AI. Why could it be a bad thing? The main thing is that, and I'm sure you've seen it, when you're talking with ChatGPT, it's all kind of very easy. It doesn't fight with you. It doesn't disagree with you. There's never a moment where you're like, did this chat just kind of hate me for asking this? This never happens. But in real, human, beautifully messy relationships, this happens all the time. And what happens is that we learn from it. We learn how to have better relationships. We adapt socially. We know how to be in the world and be with real people. And this easy type of relationship that an AI creates for you is very addictive, because we humans, if we can choose, we don't want to have a difficult time. We like comfort. We like when things are easy. So when you start this, it's very easy to get into this thing of, well, let me actually avoid real people because it's just so difficult. And I have this other thing that fulfills my needs of relationships, at least at a surface level, that I can go into and have a good time with. This is also why we see that this thing of relationships with AI, it happens a lot more with people who are heavy porn users, because porn is in some sense the same way. It's this sexual need that you have, you need to release a sexual energy, but it's, honestly, it's not easy to get a girlfriend and get her to go over to your place and have a good time with. That's not easy. It's challenging. You will fail. You will make mistakes. And so if you can get rid of that energy just by watching a video and jacking off for a couple minutes, hey, that doesn't sound like too bad of an idea. But then what we get into is our current, you could call it a relationship or a fertility crisis, where people aren't getting together anymore. People aren't having kids anymore. And this probably plays into that, right? So things like porn, and we will see the same thing with AI relationships, it has some kind of positive impact on society, in that when people release this pent-up needs, they won't go into the streets and cross some boundaries of women. So in that sense, it creates a safer society. But people are alone and will probably die off as humanity at some point. So, okay, what's happening here? Let's zoom out a little bit to the higher level and see where this is coming from. AI makes a lot of things a lot easier, which means that we don't have to think as much anymore. We are not challenged in our mental capacity. We don't have to sit down and be like, dang, how do I solve this problem? Or dang, what do I say to this person? But what we know from science on researching learning and researching growth is that these difficulties, the difficult times, they actually help you learn and help you grow. I remember when I was studying in university, when I did my exams, the only thing I studied was I took old exams and I tried to solve them. I did not open my book. I did not read my lecture notes, because it's such an easy way to go through things. I'll just read whatever I had written down, or maybe I'll copy it. It's mentally very easy. So it's very simple to oh yeah, let's do that. It feels productive. It feels great, but you learn at a much slower rate. So what I did instead was I took an old exam and I tried to solve those questions. And I remember very much, we had a week for this exam, spending 2 days on one question. I was just sitting there on the floor and thinking, dang, what do I do now? And it's scary because the clock is ticking. I had a week to study for this exam. It's taking me 2 days for a single question. I don't know, man. But towards the end, It was so smooth and I had really good grades. So forcing yourself into that challenge makes you learn. Relationships are a skill. So we need to get into our beautifully messy relationships with real humans to gain that skill of having relationships with real people. So if you want to have relationships with actual humans, you better practice having relationships with actual humans. Okay, but let's say you don't. You know, right? Let's say you don't. You're like, well, let's replace all my relationships with AI. No, fuck people. It's not literally, apparently, but fuck people. Well, how does that work? Is that fine? And I think the answer is no. What we know as well from research is that when people go through difficult times and they actually get out of it, right? So you face challenge, you hit rock bottom, something really bad happens, and then you get out of it. This tends to create something that we call post-traumatic growth. This means that out of a difficult period, you grow personally. You feel happier. You have more life satisfaction. Like these things, that's kind of what we all want in the end, right? And so it seems like some sense of challenge, some sense of difficulty, of hardship is actually necessary for our happiness. Of course, there's an optimum, right? If you don't face enough challenges, then you won't grow. If you face too many challenges, then you'll really be traumatized and you'll be in trouble for the rest of your life. Like this will have a psychological impact on you. So I'll hint this to you a little bit, but this links to how we should design AI. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And so the main idea here is that it's very easy to get to AI. It's very similar to doom scrolling, except that you can kind of say that it's sort of being productive, right? I'm asking ChatGPT questions for my work or my goals, but you're actually still kind of wasting time. You're not practicing your brain and you're not facing the difficulty that makes you really proud of what you did. When you made something yourself, you feel happier about it. So while these platforms like ChatGPT, they're all incentivized to reduce friction so that you use it more and you pay them more, they're not incentivized for building your character, for turning you into the person that you want to be, for growing your long-term happiness. It's way more like short-term comfort, exactly like social media. AI is very similar to this. But what we need to see there is we need to enjoy what I would call sacred struggle. Struggling is such an important part of life. And we already know this in fitness. Like, you know that you have to go to the gym, you have to work out because we don't need to do it manually. Like, we don't need to run after some cow. Well, I guess cows, I don't know how fast a cow can run. We don't need to run after cows and elephants and giraffes to get our food. So naturally, we don't move as much. But we do know that having movement in your life has a very large impact on your well-being, on your health, how long you will live, and how happy you will live. Now, with AI, it's exactly the same thing on the mental side, right? So just like we need to work out our physical body, we will need to work out our mental body, mind, all the same shit, the same thing. So what I would recommend is that we set aside blocks of time where we are not using AI. Again, I know for me that sometimes I ask ChatGPT things that I know it's even going to do a bad job at. So if you've done that before, take some time to write down a couple things. Maybe you think of this thing. I just asked this to ChatGPT and I knew it was going to be bad, but it was just kind of like procrastinating, right? I just ask it and I need to wait a little bit. That way I don't have to do it myself. So have some things, especially the things that are, or that you want to be meaningful and important. Because when things are difficult, when we face challenge before we can actually get to the end point, we tend to feel more proud of it because it's us who did it. So think about this. When you're doing something that you want to be meaningful, choose to use less artificial intelligence for it. Choose to actually use your mind. Learn to love this feeling of mental strain. Like, part of me really loves it, just sitting down and being like, dang, I don't know the answer to this. Like this creative process of just sitting there and not coming up with ideas. There's some joy in that. So I want you to practice that and to build that. Now, just like meditation, this is difficult. This is like focus practice. One trick that I found was very useful is this just another 5 minutes trick. When you're working, when you're like, oh, I'll just quickly ask ChatGPT. No. 5 more minutes. Let me try for 5 more minutes to solve this problem, to write this thing, to answer this question. And if I don't find it, then I'll go to ChatGPT. And finally, think about, what do I want my relationship with AI to look like? Do I want ChatGPT to be like a hammer, or do I want ChatGPT to be like a lover? And also look back and think about, how am I actually using it? Because we can deceive ourselves in these things. If you want to play around with that, I built a sort of ChatGPT alternative called Petals, where one of the main things is that you do actually define a personality for the bot. So that's one of the ways I play around with this. I try out different personalities to see how it feels to interact with it. So that way you can actually try, like, let's make one that's a lover, let's make one that's a hammer. And then you see how you interact with it and whether you like it or not. So there's a link in the description. It's free to try out for a little bit, but that's beside the main point here. The main point here is, how do we work with AI, and how do we design an AI that works for us? As I alluded to before, we need to design our AI in a way that gives us like the optimal amount of struggle. If that is something that we succeed in as a race, we would create so much happiness and at the same time so much like growth in humanity. If the AI can make some things easier just for us to get started, or just to get further than we are, and then it still makes things difficult so that we do get our growth and our happiness and our fulfillment from having done something ourselves, I think that would be an absolute amazing solution. One example for me is that when I wanted to start speaking on stages, it's kind of like, can I submit this? I don't know, man. I'm just a random dude on the internet. I know some people, but I don't know. And I was procrastinating on it for a long time until I realized, like, wait, actually, I can get ChatGPT to find speaking opportunities for me. Like it can figure out what events are going on around me, what applications are open, and they can write like a little pitch for me so I have an idea of what the audience is and what they would like to hear. And that really unlocked it for me. That just got me started going on that, because I didn't need to do the tedious work of finding places to go. And now I have a little more of a push of, as in, I need to dare to submit there. But that was actually really good back and forth. That got me further than what I could have done before. Now, would it have been even better if I broke through that first hurdle? I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, maybe that would be better for my character. I'm not sure. So when we are designing AI, think about this. You can do this in your prompts, in your custom instructions for your ChatGPT. You can think about it and say like, well, I don't want you to always straight up give me the answer, but challenge me to find it out on myself. Let you add it to your prompt. Something that I would hope to see in the future is some kind of difficulty slider, right? What if we set up our AI to be like, okay, I want it to be easy right now because I just need to get through this. I need to get this done quickly. Or I want it to be difficult because I'm working on building my character and my happiness and my fulfillment. That would be a very interesting slider to have, and it's technically definitely possible. And last but not least, something I've been sort of developing, it's a very early stage, is you could call it a dopamine nutrition label. Just like we have the labels on food for how healthy they are, I think we should have a similar thing for our activities that say, or that talk about, how good is this for my long-term happiness and fulfillment? That helps us understand, well, doom scrolling versus writing a book, which I'm working on, versus coding something, versus writing something with AI, versus brainstorming, all of these things. It would be very interesting to see what's better and what's worse. So I'll put a link to that. It's like kind of a demo thing. We need to do a lot more research and add more stuff to it, but I think it's a very interesting idea. Relationships with AI are going to happen. I don't think there's a way around it. And there are good parts to it, but they are very limited. I am honestly a little bit afraid of how easy many things will become for us which would make actual real relationships even more difficult. So as a society, I think it is important for us to start feeling sacred struggle. Like knowing that doing difficult things is good and we should try to do it and we should strive to do more of that. So learn to love the feeling of exerting your mind. And if you keep the struggle sacred, then you'll find your joy to be earned and to be more permanent. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you want to see more about this. I'll see you later.